What the YouTube? Why am I live? Where? I did... Scheduled? Auto starts disabled. Oh my god, it's... Why is this fun? Alright, I guess I'm going on live a few minutes early, because I don't know why YouTube did this. I have no idea why I'm live. I turned OBS on. I started streaming to OBS. I don't know why OBS would have control over the channel going up, though, because it's scheduled for noon. I'm genuinely baffled. Oh wow, this is how today is gonna go, apparently. Lovely. Now I was having a good day today. But anyone who's tuning into this is probably gonna be like extremely confused because I've done like 10 streams now, and they've been fine. They've known what I've been doing. Okay, so it is just me. As you can see by the fact that I am back to OBS after possibly the issue was the last time I did a live stream. I used hard to talk about it. I haven't been streaming video games lately. I should probably get back to that, but I haven't like found the time. I've been playing Darkest Dungeon, to be honest, and I don't want to stream bad RNG. Anyways, yeah, maybe StreamYard screwed it up and forced on the mandatory auto start, and I just didn't realize, and that left me staring at the computer for a moment. Fantastic. Love to see it. So, this month was, I guess, not particularly popular with the book I chose. Maybe I didn't pitch it well because, well, I hadn't read the book and I didn't know what was good about it. I knew that I liked P.K. Dick. P.K. Dick is the author that wrote Ubik, To Androids from Electric Sheep, very famous, won a bunch of awards. I like P.K. Dick's writing. And that's why The Man in the High Castle has been on my list to read ages, especially because it got a miniseries adaptation, which I haven't watched yet. And after reading the book, I don't think I will because the book takes place in like mostly California, and the promo material looked like it was all East Coast from that miniseries. It seems like they kind of licensed the product to make the story that they wanted to make. Something that, well, sometimes Hollywood does that, right? Hello, I have one viewer because the stream started early for no apparent reason. I have no idea why the stream started early. Glad that I was ready to go, I guess. Welcome to the chat. Overall, though, I really liked Man in the High Castle. This maybe not the most fast-paced book I've ever read. In fact, a lot of portions arguably kind of slow. The entire thing is very strongly built around people being uneasy and hesitant, worried about what they're going to be doing, if what they're doing is right, and so on. How to proceed, how to continue living in this alt history post-war period. For anyone tuning in who isn't familiar with the book, this is an alternate history where America lost the war. And so did Britain, so did everyone, and the Axis powers of World War II basically conquered the entire world. They split it down the middle between the socialist nationalists of Germany and Imperial Japan. Now, because of me being misinformed, even though the a lot of the tension basically comes from the politics of the Germans, the mid-century Germans. You have to try and not say certain words, so that's gonna be like a drinking game basically. If I actually do slip up and use any of the banned words, because YouTube, lovely voice recognition algorithm, isn't it? But anyways, the actual like danger and tension in the series of Man in the High Castle does come from the blatant dysfunction and internal politics of the Germans in charge of East America. However, the story takes place in the region controlled by Japan, and I am simply in awe of how well the multiple perspective characters were handled in the story. I feel like most people who write multiple perspective characters are typically just trying to fill in the gaps that they feel the reader needs to know to understand plot developments that are happening to the main character. Maybe that's a symptom of the way books are written nowadays. But this is very much like 7 people all having their own plots, and they all like symbolically reinforce one another. And the story does interconnect constantly. They all instigate each other's plots, but they all have their own development and resolution, and it just allows you to see this like tiny snapshot of what life is like in a broken America. And I actually really respect that. One of the big thematic elements in Man of the High Castle is that in order to get by after losing the war, America is basically selling its soul, like quite literally. That's a big part of the plot in the beginning. The one character, the salesman, Robert Childan, literally sells typically fake Americana to the people that conquered them and are trying to like use it for status symbol thing of, oh, look at this Mickey Mouse watch that I bought, vintage 1932, very nice. And it's stuff typically that just sounds pitch corny trash to us as Americans, but it gets treated as this exotic thing, and I think that's a very reasonable way that people behave, or to portray people behaving, because when you think about it, it's just like, okay, so how do Americans think of katanas? No, it's just a sword, not even a very good sword. Fight me, over out there. But people have built a mythology about this special weapon that is just capable of untold cutting power, even though it's just a sword. It's just sword. They're about as good as an average European sword. The best European swords, better katanas, but we don't treat them that way. And you see that in reverse in Man of the High Castle, where like the Colt 44, if I remember which gun it was correctly, keeps coming up that everyone wants to get this Civil War Colt 44. And another character is the forger that makes fake Colts and then he sells them to the factory owner. Factory owner sells them to the store guy sells them to unsuspecting Japanese people who don't know any better. Until the whole industry comes down of, well, what is authentic? What is historical? What does the meaning come from knowing it has the meaning? Which I think that's a decent question, especially as we're coming into it's something to think about it. And with the guns, it's a very tactile product that you have to ask, is this the real thing? Does it mean more than it does as an actual tool? Because obviously you can still use it and load it up with a shot and a ball and kill someone. If you've read the book, that obviously happens at the end. Very good structure. I'm very happy with the way things get set up, introduced, payoff, and then extra payoff, delivery, resolution, ennui, and so on. Every character comes to a full conclusion development. They find their Tao, basically. It's something else going on in the book that I want to get to later in the chat here. Of the ending really surprised me on like a meta level for meta reasons. I'll come back to that. But The fact that it was one character responsible for the crafting of the fake items, but possibly, hey, what if I switch to something real, something unique, something new, when they get into the business of handcrafted jewelry, and they kind of describe that the kind of junk, melty metal mess that yeah, I've definitely seen those kinds of cheap pieces of jewelry, handcraft. Not handcrafted. They're made to look like they're handcrafted, but they're clearly cranked out of a factory. And you can pick them up at a dollar store nowadays, and it's jangly and it's chrome plated, and yeah, somehow someone out there buys them. I don't know. I don't know who that someone is, but people do apparently, or they won't be on the shelf, right? So you got the one guy, then you've got the salesman who's the intermediary between the American craftsmen and the Japanese people. Money and the power. They've basically colonized California. You got the other character, which is Mr. Tagomi, which is the Japanese official. He gets that perspective of he is kind of like the political interface that gets pulled in once Reich politics kind of starts rearing its ugly head. And the way that the dangers of German authoritarianism and developing, and the secession crisis after AH is decline into senility and so on. That the book just uses that to create this undercurrent of danger as it's kind of the replacement for the Cold War, right? In this alternate history, Russia is completely destroyed, and everyone's confidently, well, at least there isn't communism. Instead, they have this backstabbing mess of the secret police versus the military versus maybe peace factions that are busy repopulating Africa in the name of, oh, we really have to expand the German living area. And it all comes to a head in the end when the crux of the danger is that during the secession crisis that happens because of Borman's, it doesn't matter, it's a made up person, I believe. After his death, there's suddenly a power vacuum over on east coast of America, and again back in Berlin as well. And there is danger of a outbreak of new war. So it goes, instead of from a dipole world to a monopole world where it's just, the Aryans. But I personally, I didn't find that was really like the crux of the story. That just spoke more to establishing that this wasn't a peaceful. I think that there is something very peculiar about the idea that an author might write an alternate history and make it seem better, particularly by accident, because obviously the modern world has a lot of problems, I think we can politely say. And if you go back and you tinker with things and just be like, oh well, if this didn't happen, we'd be over on this trajectory, we'd be among the stars. If mankind had continued pursuing atomic energy instead of getting trapped in this psyop spiral trying to develop time travelers. That's an Asimov guy time ago. Okay, maybe I should revisit. But the crux of the story, I think, was actually truly did come down to the I Ching. Yeah, the I Ching, which is a Chinese book of divination that P.K. Dick used one particular English translation, and I believe in reality. Obviously, I don't believe in divinations. I don't think anyone in this chat is going to believe in divinations. But when you get the prescriptions that are vague enough, they end up acting like a horoscope, and you, with the actual knowledge, unlike an inanimate book, can read into it the meaning. You can argue that's how it works in reality. In this book, though, nothing is random. No, that's true of all writing. That's why I don't think an author should ever make any plot point rely on random chance in any way. Because it becomes a matter of it happens when the author says it happens. It like don't get me wrong, you can have random chance in video games. Say, oh, did this happen? Did they pull this off? Whatever. That's the nature of interactive media, where the consumer is interacting with it. But in a static book, there is no such thing as random chance. It means every time someone sits there with the Euro socks and they lay out a hexagram, the divination they get, the passage they get out of that book is the one that PK Dick picked. And that actually kind of becomes pretty explicit because at the very end, which perhaps I should explain that one of the subplots in the book is that there is this book in the book that everyone is crazy about called Here Lies the Grasshopper or something like that, where it is an alternate history written inside this alternate history where Germany lost the war. But they lost it in a different way than they actually lost it in reality, which mostly prevented Russia from becoming, from becoming the Soviet Union, from becoming the second power. And I was really hoping to bring on some like World War II expert because, to be honest, okay. I've always been a little oversaturated with World War II in the media, and actually getting into the nuances of, which theaters of war were impacting what supply lines and what was the crux of the battle. Like, you really have to get into details outside of D-Day, and the popular narrative kind of only cares about the Americans showing up at D-Day, sweeping through France, out through Germany, and up to Berlin, right? So I can't speak too much about whether this secondary, like, in I don't know, the alt history in the alt history, how realistic that is. And it kind of came across as self-flattery in a sense that usually happens, at least in my opinion, when you look at writers writing stories about writers. It always kind of feels like they're puffing themselves up a bit, because the idea is that, like, he's just a guy that used the I Ching to divine some other options that could have happened, and he wrote the story based on that, based on this thing that everyone has this collective belief in it telling the truth of the Tao of the world, right? But this is obviously written by a guy here in real world writing alternate history, wherein a character writes an alternate history, and I don't think I'm crazy when I say that has to have been on his mind of what he was doing. But the fact that the final statement is that the I Ching basically is the one that wrote the alternate history, read to me as a statement that basically self-acknowledgement that it was the author of the story who wrote that alternate history, and he wrote it such that everyone took it seriously, and it is that layer of meta control. That's how I interpreted it. Fortunately, like I said, solo, I don't have any guests to chat on. But overall, man, that High Castle was pretty good. Unfortunately, chat, can someone confirm that you've been able to hear me this whole time, that I haven't just been ranting into the void right now? Or am I just solo at the moment? Regardless, I put up the other video yesterday, end of the month, right? Coming into Halloween. Hello, Asterides. I think this is going to be a more popular book selection. Now, popular being, of course, a different metric than quality. Everyone likes this book that I've ever spoken to. Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's. I got the original 1818 text because it's like it's Halloween. You got it right. You got to read something spooky, something horror, something classic for Halloween, even though that most people haven't actually read the original Frankenstein. And this is about my to read list for H's. Thought, what better time? I might as well get to it. Of course, though, this is over 200 years old, and the High Castle much more recent, much more jive in linguistic style. That's actually something I wanted to talk about. Half the book is written in broken English. I was hoping to challenge some other people who read this book that it was actually kind of annoying to read. And I think it was intentionally annoying because it is the kind of simplifications you get when you're basically English is your second language and you're trying to simplify it to more easily bridge the linguistic divide. People normally, when they're writing these kinds of stories, just brush over that. Like, this is a particularly big offender in fantasy series where everyone just magically speaks common. Right? To use the Dungeons and Dragons term, everyone speaks common. They have their own racial or regional languages, but everyone speaks common because dealing with language barriers is a pain in the ass. When I write my epic fantasy web novel, I kind of just ignore the fact that it's a really big ass to just assume that the main character speaks every major language. Sure, he was taught by basically Merlin for 10 years, and he traveled the world, but I'm kind of stretching it. I am aware that it's not really realistic that he would speak every major language. The story just struggles if people can't communicate, though, because the crux of the story is characters interacting. Breaking down the grammar and simplifying and making things a bit more chopped up and broken. I think it worked, particularly because this was supposed to be reflective of a Japanese occupation of America. You're never going to be confused about what's said, but you lose all the linguistic beauty of English when you do that. So it's a big trade-off. And if you twisted my arm and made me choose, and there was a choice to do this, I probably wouldn't read this kind of story again on a language level. As far as I'm aware, PK Dick doesn't do that ever again. It's purely driven by the nature of the alternate history trade. Found it kind of annoying. So this does not get the highest marks of any sci-fi alt history book I've ever read in my life, because it was directly annoying, in my opinion. But Frankenstein is probably going to have a different kind of problem where it's the dating of the language, where it's because it's 200 years old and people spoke in a different manner, typically more elaborate and verbose. A bit drier is what the typical accusation say. But I'm gonna hesitate from speaking too much about a book that I haven't read this time. I apologize to anyone who tuned in a month ago and heard me pitch Man of the High Castle completely wrong. I'm trying not do that again. But sitting here solo talking 20 minutes is about the length of my normal video time, so unless someone in the chat has questions for me, I'm probably gonna be wrapping this stream up early and figuring out when I can get back to video games, because I still actually quite enjoy turning on a silly video game like Castlevania, cracking open a few beers and just going at it. Austerities, floor is yours. You've got an AMA question for me. Typically, I do want these streams to end up longer. I want them to normally be at like the 1 hour mark. And the point is, I want to bring on other creators, other comic writers and prose novelists, and you name it. No, not about Man High Castle. Literally anything at this point. I'm stalling for time because I believe YouTube will punish a live stream if it's too short, even though it accidentally started my other stream and then I killed it at 30 seconds. I'm still mad at YouTube for doing that, and I don't know why that happened. But normally, I want these streams to be an hour long to bring on other creators, because at the end of the stream, the idea should be, hey, you know, viewer, if you liked this book, it's just like my other book. And unfortunately, I can't even say that about mine right now. Absolutely nothing I've published is similar to Man in the High Castle. I don't typically write multiple POVs like this. I am typically more action and thriller focused on that scale of pacing and plotting, whereas this was more of a. Most of the characters were kind of a relationship drama, let's call it, which I enjoyed reading. It's just not what I typically write, so I'm struggling with my own strategy of chilling afterwards because my stuff's just too different. But that doesn't that you can check out my book. The only book that comes to mind that is remotely similar is Into the Darkness by Turtle Dove. I have not heard of that book. Book 6. Well, I see dragons on the cover. $10 for the Kindle version. Why do $32 for the paperback? This has to be out of print. Holy crap, why do people charge that much for a digital-only product? I'm convinced that nobody actually likes reading ebooks, with the exception of old people losing their eyesight that need to crank up the font size. Who actually likes reading off a screen and not physically turning pages? But it's a digital product. It's not worth $10. Jesus Christ. That goes to any indie listening to this right now. Your ebook is not worth $10. Not. Killer Crows being a fantasy taker in World War II monster stand-in for War Machine. You know what? That actually does sound like a fun plot pitch. The more war-focused alternate history takes can be really fun. Like, I actually really want to get into the plot and lore of the board game Scythe. The game's a lot of fun. It has a really cool aesthetic, but the idea is that it's like World War era steam powered mechs out in the Ukraine, basically. Magic powered guns where soldiers. Sacrificing the wounded to recharge their rifles. Interesting. That just got significantly grimmer and darker. So, did you actually like this book, Asterides? Or are you just aware of it and bringing it up as a comparison? That is something that a lot of people tend to do, is they will talk about books they're aware of that had cool ideas, but didn't actually go track it down and buy it. And you were this doesn't sound like a book a 12-year-old should have read. Okay, though. Yeah, I mean, the first printing, according to Amazon, came out in 2000, which is quite a bit more recent than 1960s something. PK Dick. Man of the High Castle. Original copyright was 1960. Oh, this is actually close to the end of his life. Oh, it wasn't. Never mind. He died in 1982. Not bad. I did not realize the first page is his bibliography. One of the nice things about having physical products, for the record, not only do you end up with a nice backdrop if you're in your recording where you can just fill out a bookshelf, not only does that become a conversation piece. People show up to your house and they can notice books that are worth talking about because they also know it. But you get add-ons that you can discover, because once you put an ebook down, you never have a real reason to open it back up. AudioStream's current bitrate 0 is lower than the recommended bitrate. Why does YouTube think that did my audio just cut out? Why does it think the bitrate's 0? Okay, so I'm about to declare that this stream is completely cursed, that the YouTube live interface has completely failed me. I still am upset that it started the stream 7 minutes before I told everyone to hop on in here. So all of that went to nothing. I'm on the wrong link as well. So there's probably going to be a lot of people coming in confused and late and trying to get my take on a book they've heard about, but I don't think anyone actually read. But whatever. So it goes. It's Saturday. I'm going to go do some yard work or something. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I don't have anything more to add about Man in the High Castle, except I liked it. I'm inspired to go write a better multiple POV book myself. I don't know where I'm going to do that, though. I seem to be focusing specifically on single character stories at the moment, which are popular. Most readers want that. Whatever. Cheers, everyone.